Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I love bringing to you people who are focused on their own development and also bringing out the best in others. And today, I'll tell you, we couldn't have someone who's any better at doing both of these than my guest. And I'm just so thrilled to welcome Tommy Breedlove. Tommy, welcome to my show.
Meredith Bell, my friend, I am so grateful and humbled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, Tommy, it's just going to be such a great conversation. And before we get started, of course, I want to give a big thank you to our good friend, Laban Ditchburn, who is responsible for us knowing each other. He's an amazing connector, and we both love him. And it's just great that our lives have come together because of him.
And his Australian accent.
I know, the world's best courage coach.
Yes.
So before we jump in, there are so many things I want to talk to you about around your wonderful book, Legendary. I want to do a more formal introduction so people appreciate who you are and where you've come from, because you have such a unique background. Tommy is the Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of this book that I'm holding up, Legendary. He's also the founder of the Legendary Life Movement. And this is a movement that empowers driven people to be pros in leadership, business, mindset, and their relationships. But I'll tell you, Tommy's path did not start out in one of success. He had a very difficult childhood because he got bullied and abused as a kid. And then he became a bully himself. And at the age of 18, he actually beat up someone he cared about and ended up spending 2 years in jail. But Tommy emerged from that experience stronger and determined to change his life. And he went on to have a 20-year corporate career at one of the largest financial consulting firms in the world. And then at the top of that career, Tommy experienced a transformational moment that inspired him to walk away from the corporate world and follow his true calling, which was to empower others to build and live legendary lives. You know, Tommy, not many people can, say they had these transformational moments that you did. And I want you to talk a little bit about both of them. The one that led up to you being in jail and what happened when you were there that caused you to emerge different. So let's start with that one.
Yeah, we'll start there. And luckily I was sentenced to 2 years. Luckily I did not serve 2 years. So I'm super thankful for that. So I'm also super thankful it was dropped from a felony to a misdemeanor, which really helped me out as well. That there was a lot of good fortune or divine fortune, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
But something really unique happened to me, and it was a South Atlanta jail. And growing up, you said it, I was severely abused in a lot of different ways, and became very angry and became the thing that I hated the most, became the violence and abuse. And I never really had a great male figure in my life. But when I was incarcerated, an African-American gentleman, which is racial lines are strong in those institutions, and it's very rare that someone will cross a racial boundary. And he saw something in me. His name was Tony, and he called me Young Blood. And so he stepped across, I was 18 years old and had my whole life in front of me, and he's in his 40s. And so from an accountability standpoint, a mentor standpoint, he says, you're not going to become part of this revolving door system. You've got too much potential, too much going for you. And so with his help, guidance, and true mentorship, and showing me what a leader looked like, educating me on his life and what if I continue down this path, what it'll look like. And so with his guidance, when I got out, I went to work for a factory during the day for $6 an hour, put myself through community college at night, did end up at the University of Georgia, Graduated with honors with an accounting degree. And one of the things I'm most proud of is I went from literally a jail cell to a company called Deloitte in 3 years. And so really, really happy and excited for that. And that thus began my professional financial consulting, public accounting, mergers and acquisitions career, which I was in for almost 17, 18 years.
Mm. So there came another time, though, when, and I want you to talk about what exactly happened that caused you to realize this is not what I really want either.
Yeah, so at 36 years old, and I'm a firm believer in success and personal accountability and ambition and driven. That's my community, are ambitious and driven men and women. And so when I got to I was recruited from Deloitte to other firms, and my career was skyrocketing. From the outside, you just said, "No, Tommy looks like he's got it going on." And there I was at 36, tailor suit, corner office, fancy cufflinks, expensive car, all the shiny bells and whistles. Remember, I came from very humble beginnings. I was the first person to ever go to college in my family and go into a professional career, making more money at 36 than I knew what to do with. But I found myself alone. I felt alone. The voices in my head just were just like, hey, what if they figure out you don't know what you're doing? What if they figure out who it was just really loud. And I was eat up and still angry, still eat up in fear. And when the money, the power, the status didn't light me up, I turned to all of the darkness to fulfill me. Think Wolf of Wall Street type lifestyle. And at 36, I was probably doing some multi-million-dollar audit or deal the week before. And I ended up in a ditch looking at the blue sky, thinking, my God, how did I get here? Like, why do I live in fear? Why am I angry? Why am I insecure? And my insecurity came out in arrogance. And anytime we see arrogant people, that's just insecurity on steroids. So I was the tough guy, the important guy, the life of the party guy, the guy that could not, like, everybody loved me, but it wasn't me. And at that moment, I was working, my wife and I, of course, were working with a marriage counselor. And I remember that person saying that there's a place in Tennessee that can do more for you, Tommy, in 7 days than I can do in 10 years. And that's when I heard him, when I was laying in that ditch thinking, oh my God, I need to get my life. Like, I need to figure out who Tommy is, who he is, where he's going, and who's coming with me. And so I went to that facility in Tennessee, and it changed my whole life. It let me know that I wasn't alone with all of the insecurities and fears and worries that I had. It gave me unbelievable tools to build humility, self-confidence, self-respect, self-love, and self-courage. And from that moment on, I decided to make me my full-time job, working on my mental muscles, my emotional muscles, my spiritual muscles, and my physical muscles, and prioritizing me first, because I was always putting business first, network second, marriage third, and me last. And they taught me that the most selfless thing you can do is put yourself first and really work on loving, leading, and respecting yourself the best you can with humility, not arrogance. And the most amazing thing happening, I never planned on leaving the public account. Hell, I became a board member and senior partner and international practice leader. So let me tell you that when I made me my full-time job, let me tell you what the tangible benefits were. I went from junior partner to senior partner to international practice leader to elected to the board of directors of a giant firm. Most of the board of directors were in their 60s, and there I was at 39. My income doubled. My network 10x'd. It went from, pain likes pain. So I was hanging out with a lot of people, M&A people, lawyers, bankers, accountants, you know who you are, who were also miserable. And I took them out of my life, and my network just 10x'd in all the right ways. But more importantly than all of the money, the rising to the top of the firm and become a part of the board of directors and an owner of the firm and all of my network, the most intangible benefits came is that I went from being one of the most disliked people in the firm to one of the most loved. I went from my marriage being on life support to it being completely strong. But the feeling of peace, the feeling of confidence, the peace of just being Tommy and I stopped letting people who didn't matter in my life. And just the feeling of true freedom, true peace of mind, and true what I call humility and power was just unbelievable. And here's the crazy thing is all of these people in my network, entrepreneurs, corporate executives, bankers, lawyers, other people in the professional services world started reaching out to me. And I thought, well, we're going to network and do business because that's how I did. And they were like, no, let's go for a walk. Let's grab a beer. And they wanted to know how I did it because they saw a 180-degree turn in who I was, how I acted, what I was doing, and just asked me for help. And eventually they talked me into writing a book on how I did it. It's a book on self-leadership and self-mastery. And just super thankful it became a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. And I'm also super thankful that I had the courage to sell my equity in the firm and walk away at the very top of the game and go chase this dream of building a legendary life movement, which is all about, we can't build legendary businesses and lives alone. We have to prioritize ourselves, and we can turn that voice inside our head from an enemy to an ally. And so that's everything that we stand for. And we're not for everybody. We're for the ambitious and driven type, but I'm just super thankful to be able to do this for a living. So thank you for letting me share that, Meredith.
Oh, I love that story. I could just feel the difference in that way you were to the new Tommy, just as you were describing it. There's emotion in your voice there that carries that transformation. I loved it. Thank you. And so let's talk about this book, Legendary, the title itself and the movement itself. Where did that come from? What does that word mean to you?
So it's an aspirational word to me. And the reason I love the word legendary is I certainly do not think I am legendary by any means or fashion, but I hope one day to be considered that. And what I love about the word legendary, it's given to us by our peers, our families, our society, our culture. Really our ethos is who will either, and we could be terrible legends and we're not even going to name their names. They're still in history, or you can be an unbelievable legend. And to me, it's about leaving this planet, leaving who we touch, leaving everything around us a little bit better than we found it. So it's about impact, it's about purpose, but it's also about freedom. And the whole point of Legendary is I want humans, including myself, because I work on me every day, coaches, mentors, masterminds, I'm practice what I preach, is hopefully that when we leave this life, we leave it better than we found it. We leave this planet better than we found it, and humans better than we found it. And we did it in our way. And I think at the end of the day, living a legendary life really means on your last breath, having a heart filled with gratitude and no regrets. And so that's where the title Legendary came from. And when so many people, corporate executives, men and women just started reaching out to me, asking for advice, not just because I had a huge business background. So we still have a lot of leadership in business. Our entire movement is built around that. But also, how do you be a legendary human? How do you be legendary in your relationships with your friends, your family, your significant other? Because we all struggle there. Not one of us get out of that alone. We all have issues there. Mm-hmm. So we're in the space of helping the ambitious and driven become pros in every area of their life, not just business, but also themselves, their families, their relationships, their network, et cetera. And so that's what the entire movement. And we run retreats, we run experiences. We just had an experience where we took 11 guys whitewater rafting and backpacking, and then we did a leadership lean in yesterday. And so I'm coming off of a high with those great men who came and they hiked, they whitewater rafted, but then they leaned in on being better leaders in their corporate and entrepreneurial jobs. So it's an entire ethos. It's a mastermind. It's groups. It's retreats. It's experiences, and it's just all about all of us being a little bit better each and every day. So thank you for letting me share that to you, Meredith.
I love that. Well, one of the to me important things that you talk about is, in just the way you've structured what you do, is recognizing we can't do this alone. It's really important to have that support, people to challenge us and support us when we're trying to make these changes, because they aren't easy. And there's several things in the book that I think are so relevant to all of my listeners, some of whom are in the corporate world, some of whom are business leaders and business owners themselves, and some who, work inside an organization. But talk about self-leadership. What do you mean by that versus a title?
So it's the number one failure in leadership. And I'm talking leadership of self, leadership of others, if you have responsibility or you have people who work directly for you, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're executive, the number one failure in leadership is self-awareness. And another problem with us leaders and us ambition-driven types is we think we have to do it alone. And for me, isolation is the absolute enemy of excellence. We don't have all the answers. And so for me, leadership of self means is being competent. And I'm talking not just confident in your craft, because if you're an executive business owner, you're probably very competent in your craft, but also confident internally, standing with your head up, shoulders back, and being confident in all the decisions, because people follow confidence. And that comes from self-esteem. That comes from knowing thyself, being self-aware, being authentic, being vulnerable. I'm not telling you to be emotionally vomit on your people, but I'm telling you asking for help is okay. Being who you are is okay. Constantly working on yourself to be stronger, to be more peaceful, to be more present, to be more confident, to be more courageous. That's the confidence I'm talking about. So leadership of self is about literally standing with humble confidence and being the absolute best leader. And it's just an epidemic that we put ourselves last, and we're not taught how to be mentally and emotionally strong, how to be proactive and not reactive, because we're chasing the ideal, and the ideal in business and ourselves is a moving horizon. We'll never get there. And we wonder, it doesn't matter if we have $1 in our bank or 100 million in the bank. When we have that, we're like, why am I still not happy? Because we're chasing the ghost of when and more. But all of our money, our title, our success, our respect, our reputation, our friends, our family, they can go away like that. And are you going to stand there in power and confidence? Are you mentally and emotionally strong? If you think look at what COVID did to people. That's how weak we are as a society. Look at Facebook. That's how weak we are as a society. And so for us, in order to be legendary or to live a legendary life or to build a legendary business, we have to prioritize ourselves first. We have to be mentally, emotionally, if it's important to you, I'm not talking religion, and spiritually strong so that we can lead others. We have to lead ourselves first because it's the hardest thing to lead. Self-awareness is our number one failure. We have to be aware of who we are, where we're going, and who's coming with us. And if we lead, love, and respect ourselves fully, we can lead, love, and respect others better. So that's what we're standing for. That's what I mean by self-leadership. It's a soapbox. So I could sit here and talk for 8 hours on it.
Good. Well, one of the things, though, I want to kind of circle back to, there's so many things, where we could go deeper, but one in particular that I think is so relevant today, you were talking about being proactive instead of reactive. A lot of my listeners, are in positions where they have a lot of things going. And so when you have to respond to things that are coming at you, and deal with multiple inputs, what's a strategy or what's a tip that you could give to help someone make that shift to be more proactive than reacting to things that, are occurring in the moment?
Well, the first thing they have to realize is they're not alone. A lot of us in leadership positions, and I'm literally standing in a hotel that I own, so we have a lot of personal people here too. So a lot of us leaders think we're alone in all of the profit pressures that we have, the employee decisions that we have, the customer decisions or client decisions that we have. And the first thing they have to know is they're not alone. And if they feel like they're constantly on a hamster wheel, or they never get ahead, or they're worried and scared about what's coming, that means you're being reactive and not proactive. And so it's even like, I don't know why people do this. It's like the difference between hiring as well. Recruiting is proactive. Hiring is reactive. So we're constantly, whether it's the Legendary Life Movement, the Mountaintop Lodge, Shine Your Bright, or any of our other companies that we own, we are constantly being proactive in how we recruit. But what I would tell people is your time and schedule in charge of you, or are you in charge of it? Is your technology in control of you, or are you in control of your technology? Or is your top 3 priorities, are you in charge of those priorities, or are you just chasing every shiny object or email or text or fire that comes? because not all fires are created equal. The first thing I would say is lead yourself, get stronger in your heart and mind. I'd say that first. And there's a billion tools that we can talk about to do that. That's the number one thing I tell them. Number two is get in charge of your time, and get in charge of your time now. Especially if you're in a leadership position. I don't have more time than you do. We all have 24 hours in a day, period. Not one person. The successful are prioritize. What are your top three priorities? And you only focus there. That's your zone of brilliance. You only focus on your top three priorities, and you must be good at them, and you must enjoy doing them, and outsource the rest. And not all problems are created equal. You can only work on one thing at a time. You can only have one thought in your head at a time. And by the way, most people like to multitask, and only 1 out of 100 people can actually multitask. Get laser focused, stop multitasking, because you're 40% less efficient if you've got your email up, your phone next to you, and you're trying to fight all these fires. So lead yourself, get stronger mentally and emotionally, become the masters of your emotion and mindset. Number two, get in charge of your time with prioritization. Number three, outsource everything except your priorities.
Excellent. Love those. And you know, it seems to me addressing any one of those would really help with
100%.
not feeling so overwhelmed. I want to read something that you had said, because one of your aha moments was when a mentor asked you this question, which I loved. And I want you to talk about what this meant to you and why it was such an important one. And it was, do you want to live your life, or do you want to continue to live your story? What did that mean to you?
It means everything to me. And I think it means everything to everyone. Is the story that we tell ourselves in our heads, doesn't matter what the story is, was given to us. And I was taught at a very, very young age that I was really not good enough, not worthy enough, was never going to amount to anything, not successful. And I was, running to rage and anger just to prove everybody wrong, just to prove everybody that I will be successful. I will this. And I call it, and forgive the innuation here, but it's an FU backpack. And I was living angry, and I was telling myself a story that was just not true. And what I tell everybody has a story in their head of who they are, where they're going. And most of those stories are untrue. We're constantly beaten down by the left and right wing media that we're victims. There's so much negativity on Amazon, our news, Facebook, Instagram, and now even LinkedIn. So we're constantly inundated with poison of envy, of poison of jealousy, poison of division, and it's all BS. I'm trying to keep it clean here, man, because I'm fighting against laziness, entitlement, victimhood, and apathy. And all of us have this story in our head that we don't tell anybody else that is completely not true. And here's the thing, anything that was taught to us can be untaught. Anything that's wired into our heart and brains can be unwired. And so when he told me, Tommy, do you want to continue telling yourself that you want to live your life, or do you want to live that story you're telling yourself? And it was so impactful, because the only thing I knew at that point is I have a choice. The only power any human being has on earth is their choices. And I can choose to believe that narrative that some parents and some people in the news and all these negative things, I can choose to believe that narrative, or I can rewrite the story in my brain to one of power, to one of courage, to one of confidence, to one of abundance, not fear, to one of love and not fear. And so at that moment, I chose to stop living my story and to rewrite the story into goodness, to impact, significance, gratitude, and again, confidence, courage, and peace of mind. And so for me, the only power we have at all, we like to think we're in control. Good luck, right? And we're chasing this thing called perfection, right? We're never going to get there. Again, that's swimming to the horizon. But if we get in charge of our stories, and we rewrite the narrative in our head from an enemy to an ally, what happens in our external life, from friends to families to love to success to money, to a feeling of courage, it's just beautiful. And so at that moment, it was like he punched me in the face, but it was like a good punch in the face, like, hey, I'm going to rewrite my story from here on out. And we all have that. And that's what I want to tell every one of your listeners. You are not alone. That's what I want you, because people think they're alone in their thoughts, their worries, their insecurities, their fears, and especially us ambitious driven types. And the number one foundation that we live in is do not walk this life, do not walk these decisions, do not walk these choices, and do not walk your business alone. Do it with a like-minded community who will help help you with wisdom and not advice. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, thinking about stories, and I love the fact that, choice is, if we keep that in mind, we don't have to believe our story. But I'm curious if you still find yourself creating stories. It seems to me this is a never-ending thing in terms of raising our own self-awareness. Do you find that you still have stories at times, but you catch yourself faster?
Of
And
course.
don't stay in them as long?
Meredith, this is definitely not what it looks like to have it all figured out, because I get challenged every single day, and I tell all of I am no guru, I am no sage on the stage. I literally stand shoulder to shoulder with these people. That's why I believe that. I mean, I'm in the mentor, success, coaching, and mastermind world, and guess what? I have coaches to help me with my narrative. I belong to two masterminds to help me be more successful in business, life, and my relationships. And so what I love about self-mastery and becoming, the master of our emotions and mindset is we never actually get there. Because if we were perfect and immortal, this life would be super, super boring. But what we can do every day, we're gonna take, what I hope for people is they take 8 steps forward and 2 back, not 9 back and 1 forward. So the stories and the narratives we say in our heads, the insecurity, the fears, the worries, the sometimes comparing ourselves to someone who's been doing it a lot longer or who appears to have more success. And now in this world of social media, it's in YouTubes and TikToks, it's all around us of people are putting Instagram fabulous and LinkedIn successful, and they're just struggling as much as we are. They're just human beings. And so for us to surround ourselves, every day I have something I'm working on or struggling with. But I have an unbelievable network of humans, of men and women in the Legendary Life movement. I have an unbelievable supporting staff of friends, and my wife is the chairman of my board. And I have a wonderful mastermind that I belong to and coaches that I work with to continually sharpen my pencil, to become more self-aware, to become a better leader, to become a better man, to become a better entrepreneur. And so I work on it every day. But no, the work never stops. And it's just like muscles, by the way. If you stop exercising, you're going to gain weight and atrophy. Anything that's not growing is dying. The same thing goes with our knowledge. The same thing goes with our heart muscle. Same thing goes with our mind muscle. And the same thing goes with our spirit. We've got to work them out every day. And it's about quality, not quantity. I'm not telling you to go up on a mountain and meditate for 4 hours. That is boring and useless. I'm telling within an hour or less a day, you can stand with more courage, more confidence, run to the fire, not away from the fire, and rewrite that story and self-awareness a whole lot quicker than you probably were doing yesterday.
Well, one of the things I definitely want to get into, because it was one of my favorite chapters, and it's something I believe in so much. When you're talking about mindset in general, I love that you emphasize gratitude being a core element of that and a way of life. And I practice that a lot myself, because I know that state lends itself to, creating more positive energy for me and in the world. I would love to know, what are some, I guess, practices that my listeners could adopt to help them feel gratitude more often, so they raise their awareness in that whole area?
So I want your audience and everyone to hear this, because this is game changing. So you guys can send me your $1 million checks after I say this. So every single night before you go to bed, do 3 things that you're grateful for. So it could be anything. It could be the breath in your lungs. If you're in the United States and you're on this side of the soil, should be grateful for it. I hate the word should, but we need to be grateful for a lot of things. And so for me, every night, 3 things out loud that you're grateful for. Is that you have someone who loves you, the breath in your lungs, that you had a great day, or did you learn something from a failure today? I don't think there's any failures. I think there's only learning. So 3 things at night that you're grateful for. What that does, it puts you in a present moment. It gets you out of a state of fear and in abundance, and it gets us thankful for what we do have. And it is not a ceiling, it is a floor. I'm not asking you to be content. It is a floor we stand on, because us ambition-driven types, we're going to keep on moving. But here's the next thing in gratitude. What were 3 ways that you won the day? What were 3 wins you have today? Because again, us ambitious driven type, we're always measuring ourselves and our businesses against an ideal, and the corner keeps moving and the ideal keeps moving. So that's why we're never happy or fulfilled. However, if we turn around and look backwards on how did we win the day, what did we accomplish today, personally and professionally, that puts us in a state of celebration, puts us in a place of gratitude, and it puts us in a place of presence. And think about all the people listening. What have you accomplished over the last year, over the last 6 months, over the last 90 days, over the last day? I bet you've accomplished quite a lot, personally and professionally. Celebrate that. Be grateful for it. Give yourself a little self-love and celebrate it at night. And the last thing I'd ask you to do at night is, how are you going to win the day tomorrow? 3 ways you're going to win the day tomorrow. So 3 things you're grateful for, 3 ways you won today, and 3 ways you'll win tomorrow. But also every single day, I live with an attitude of gratitude. Literally my last breath on this earth, I want to have a heart full of gratitude and no regrets. And that to me is legendary. And for me, every single day, I write down things I'm grateful for. I'm constantly telling my friends and family, I'm sending gratitude texts, because I want people to know that I am not walking this alone. And I am thankful for their wisdom. I am thankful for their support. I am thankful for their love. And I am thankful that they're in my life. And that just puts you in a place of abundance and not fear. You can't be in a place of abundance and be scared at the same time. So I learned gratitude from Oprah, and I think she's been pretty successfully, personally and professionally. And I'm a huge fan. She hasn't called me yet, so Oprah, if you're listening, call me. Her voice is soothing to me, but I learned that from her. And then you look around of all the true greats that I look up to, and there are a lot of them, and they all practice some form of gratitude.
That's great. Those are wonderful tips. Thank you. I love that phrase, win the day, because I reflect at the end of each day, what were my wins? But I don't think of it as win the day. I'm going to adopt that phrase. It has a different feel to it. It kind of triggers a positive emotion in a different way. So thank you for that.
If I have to say this, I got to say it, because I'm going to get on a soapboxy a little bit. If you, and within the first hour of waking up, we're not going to talk about the bathroom here, but within the first hour of waking up, if you are on your text, email, or cell phone, you are losing the day. You have become your technology, you are serving it, and it is not serving you. You're already at work and text, responsibilities, overwhelm. That first hour of the day, when you're in your alpha state, that's when you need to work on your physical muscles, your heart muscles, your mind muscles, and your soul muscles. So that's where we get strong. That's where we're the most receptive. And so your first hour of your day, step away from your cell phone and step into growth, learning, gratitude, reading, meditation, silence, journaling, prayer, whatever it is for you, and exercise. Use that first hour of your alpha state. Do not get on your phone. If you're on your phone, you have lost the day, and you have become literally a slave and sheep to your technology. First hour, alpha state, gratitude, meditation, exercise, silence, journaling, reading, growing, learning, listening to this wonderful podcast, whatever it is, win the day. That's how you win the day. And when you close, like we just talked about, that's how you close, by winning the day. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox. Thank you for letting me share that.
That's great. No, I concur with that my first hour of the day is my sacred time, and I do all the things you just talked about.
Holy time. I call it holy time.
I call it my sacred time. It really is that time that's just for me. And it sets the tone for the whole day. It puts me in the right place versus jumping in and starting doing something right away. It changes how the whole day feels. So I agree with you. In wrapping up, I have one last question, because I want to think about how my listeners can become legendary in their workplaces. No matter what their title or position is, what are 1 or 2 specific things that they could do on a day-to-day basis that would fit your definition of legendary, what you were describing right at the beginning?
So whatever area, we're always constantly working on something. The people I hang with are, so the ambitious and driven types that are in my ethos, we're always working on something, whether it's professionally or personally. But the 3 things they have to do is, number 1 is they have to lead themselves first. They have to be a better leader at work. You need to become more self-aware. You need to be constantly growing. You need to be hanging around to people who lift you up and make you better and hold you accountable. Really, the only person that can hold you accountable is yourself. But what are you doing to grow yourself? What are you learning? What are you working on? What are you trying to master? And here's the problem with leaders. We need to go from ignorance to awareness to transformation. And remember, the number one failure in leadership is knowing thyself. So get to know yourself, get authentic, get it. So let me tell you what people follow. People follow confidence, people follow optimism, people following authenticity, and people follow consistency. So where do you need to work on that? And consistency looks like this. If you are not honoring your time or other people's time, that is a cancer that will eat your organization from the inside out. So are you constantly canceling on people or not showing up for yourself or others? So the number one thing I would tell them is show up for yourself first. Work on yourself first. Work on your courage, your confidence, your growth, your knowledge. Work on you first, because it will only benefit those around you. Second thing I was telling them is look who you are surrounding yourself. Are they making you better and lifting you up, or are they dragging you down? So again, it's about self-mastery. So where do you need to work on? People follow the following things: confidence, optimism, authenticity, and consistency. So which one of those do you need to work on? Find you a tribe, find you a mentor, find you a coach, join a group of men and women and work on that together, because isolation is the enemy of excellence. So work on you first, find a tribe to do life and business with. And number three, constantly work on that voice inside of your head, making it stronger, courageous, confident, making it an ally and not an enemy. If you do those three things, you will be a world-class and badass leader. If you do none of those things, you are just going to be like everybody else.
I love that. Thank you for those three really crucial elements for being a positive force in the world. Tommy, I know people are going to want to know more about you. I know they will want to get a copy of your book, Legendary. I highly recommend it because there's so many great stories in there. I read just the introduction and I was hooked because of the wonderful stories you tell. And so much is in there that I think is a great roadmap for people. So share how they can connect with you, get your book, and learn more about your work with the Legendary movement.
Here's the great thing. If you're not a reader, I will read it to you. If my Southern accent doesn't bother you, get it on Audible and I will read it to you. But the key is they have to take intentional action. Reading a book is great. Taking action on the wisdom is where that happens. So be intentional and take action. So you can reach me directly. I'll give you my direct email if you are interested in attending an executive retreat or one of our experiences or joining a mastermind or figuring out what our legendary men and women are all about. Send me an email directly, Tommy@TommyBreedlove.com. I or a member of my team will 1000% respond. And love you to learn more. If what we talked about resonates with you, come join an experience, come sit in a retreat. And it's all about self-mastery, self-confidence, and being better professionally and personally. Come hang with us. And I promise you'll be better than you arrived. But the book is certainly a great start. Reach out to me directly at Tommy@TommyBreedlove.com. If you're ambition and driven and constantly want to be better than you were yesterday, you're our people. If you're not, call somebody else.
That's great. Tommy, I just love the growth that you have personally committed to and experienced and where you are today. It's exciting to think that you still, see yourself as evolving and growing, and you aren't, you're not done yet. And
I have not figured it all out yet. I'm walking this every single day.
Yeah, it's an inspiration to everybody that you have that humility that you talked about, that you shared so many important ideas, wisdom with my audience today. And I just want to say I'm grateful for you and
thank you for that.
And the energy you bring to the work you do. It's remarkable and important. So thank you.
You're so welcome. And I want to give you a shout out too, because one of our biggest challenges as society, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as executives, is communication. And you have written a world-class book on better communication, better listening, being a better leader, boss, human. And I just want to give you a shout out. Thank you for putting that out in the world, because one thing we need to be better, all of us, including this guy, is communicating.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because the title is Connect with Your Team and the subtitle is Mastering the Top 10 Communication Skills, because like you, we know that this is a lifelong process. It doesn't imply that you're going to ever arrive. It's continual learning and growing. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're so very welcome, Meredith. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out our 2 books, Connect with Your Team and Peer Coaching Made Simple. While you're there, download the free facilitator guide to find out how to implement our unique peer coaching system. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.